Hey everybody, welcome back to GSC. So behind me you can see I have a coated turbo crossover for 6.5. It is the Jet Hot Coat off-road rated ceramic coating that they did. So I bought the crossover pipe from KB Diesel and sent it over to Jet Hot. They did a nice little coating for us. I've never had experience with coatings before. I've wrapped exhaust, I've high temp painted them. So we're gonna go ahead and give this a try, but first I'm gonna take Casper out and drive it and get some baseline numbers with the S300 in a non-coated KB Diesel crossover pipe, and then I'll swap over to this one and we'll see what we see. I'm really hoping to see a little bit of difference in EGTs, but realistically I live in the Rust Belt, so the biggest thing I'm excited for is that's corrosion resistant, so that is going to be a huge help. So I'm going to go ahead and get the truck going and turn the cameras on in the cab, and you guys can do a ride along with me, and then I'll swap these out in a little bit and do the same thing, and that way we can all follow along. Thanks all. It's 82 degrees outside in sunny southeast Michigan. The truck does not have air conditioning, so I'm sorry if I begin to glisten as I sweat into oblivion. Alright, so I've got my pyrometer obviously on the pillar, and I have my handheld scanner next to me, which reads air intake temperatures, which will give us a chance to kind of see what the what this crossover pipe is doing. So hopefully we can all read the gauges, and I'll be able to read the air intake temp. It's right around 825-degree EGTs. We're seeing 176-degree air intake temps. She gets a little warm as we're really getting on it. 60 mile an hour. We're seeing about 425 and 107-degree intake temp. Take it out a little further here. Do a nice big loop out here on these country miles and see how it does. And then we'll swap out and see if we notice any difference with the coated crossover pipe, which, like I said, I'm expecting to see the EGTs fluctuate a little bit because of the coated piping, and I'm also expecting to see a little bit of difference when we're out towing with it, but I currently don't have anything that needs to be hauled, so I'm not gonna make a big deal out of hooking onto a trailer with this on a 100-degree day if I don't necessarily have to. Alright, let's see if I can set the cruise control on this thing at 60. Cruise is set. Air intake temps are standing around 109, 107, 500-degree rough EGT right now at cruising speed. So this is where that intercooler came in handy that I did last year. The current air intake temps are 105 degrees, and that's about where they've settled out. EGTs are right around 480, 490. So it's definitely seeing some heat right now. This would also be the benefit of maybe attempting to have exhaust manifolds and turbine housing coated as well to help kind of keep that heat out of the engine bay. Granted, this is a big billet wheel HX Borg Warner S300. It's a 6068.88 open scroll, so it's pretty good size. As we see a drop in our air intake temps, our EGTs were coming down just a little bit, not a whole lot. They were coming down around 470, 480. Alright, we're gonna slowly take this turn out here. Alright, really get on it. Our peak EGTs are right around 925, 950, 975, and that's where they stop, and that was at quite a few miles an hour. Our peak air intake temperature ended right around 222 degrees, and that was full tilt all the way through overdrive into the torque converter lockup. So this really doesn't run horribly. My HX35 and HX40 right now at full tilt we're over 325 degrees. So this big Borg is really moving quite the volume of air at a much lower number. So that's actually kind of comforting to know that the Borg is a step in the right direction if you don't want to go intercooled. As you can see, the ground for my pyrometer is obviously hooked to something that doesn't like turn signals. So just easing on it. Air intake temps creep up. 138, 143, 145, 147, 149, 55 mile an hour. They kind of peaked at 149 and they're starting to taper back down. Now that the engine bay is heat soaked though, the lowest they're probably going to get is 120. We're falling now and we're right around 122. Get over these railroad tracks and I'll put it back at 60 and we'll see what it does now that it's had some time to get itself good and warm on that extended pull. So right around 60, still seeing just a touch over 500 degree EGTs. Air intake temps are about 122 right now, and that was after our good little romp out there on it. Obviously it's still 82 degrees and it's 90% humidity today, so the truck's really gonna have to work for it because it's so humid. But now I can say we have some base numbers. We saw a peak EGT at around 975. That was full tilt all the way through the gears, torque converter locked. Our typical peak EGT is right around 800 degrees. Cruising on flat ground here on flat land, country land, is between 450 and 500 degrees. And our air intake temps, now that we've been kind of just cruising here for almost a mile, they've come down to 116. So they are getting more stable and they are coming down. Just they were a little toasty there when I was really feeding it the beans. So we'll take it back to the GSC headquarters here and let it cool off, obviously, before I decide to change this crossover pipe. And then I'll set it back up and we'll do the same drive again with the coated crossover, and we'll see what our EGT peak is. I expect the EGT peak to go up, since obviously we will be keeping heat inside the piping instead of letting it have a thermal loss and go through the wall. So we should see a little bit quicker spool time. It should be a little more spunky and a little bit less laggy. So we will see what happens here. It's 92 degrees now instead of 82 like this morning. My brother,
that's how I feel about it,
Chef ESB here, is sweating with me. Here is our cool new crossover pipe. Here's Casper. I literally do a lot of the stuff under a shade tree because GSC HQ, the garage, is not quite big enough. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing installed. Cameras are still in the truck, and then we're gonna do our little bit of a test drive, give him the cameras to pull the data out of them, and then we will be well on our way to the final steps of this episode. So I'm gonna crawl under a truck and reverse my process here to change my crossover pipe, and we'll go from there. All right, so we're under Casper here. The three 15mm bolts have been removed from the passenger manifold. As you can see, I apparently have a valve cover leaking, and it's a new leak. Not good, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get those other three bolts out here on the driver's side, and then this crossover will be ready to pull out Remember to heat your bolts up before you yank them out of these manifolds, and once you've done the job, please remember to take the time and put never sees on them when you put them back in.
All right, so this is Ginger Snap's little brother. He's obviously under the truck, doesn't want to come out. This is the previous crossover pipe, as you can tell. That valve cover was leaking. He's made a mess.
It's non-coated. Yeah, I'm changing colors here.
So this is your stock.
KB diesel performance replacement, and this is our jet hot coated new replacement.
Is this one also from KB Diesel, the one you had coated?
It is indeed. Now, this is non-coated. Typically, I put header wrap on them, but because of prior life experience, what happens a lot of times is that living here in the Rust Belt, they'll rot because their header wrap collects moisture, it ends up full of goop. These are supposed to be corrosion resistant, and they're also supposed to be just as good, if not better, than header wrap for heat soak. So that's why this one's going in Casper. I'm going to hide under here from the sun because I'm a ginger and I don't want to burn. I'll get this installed and then we'll go do our second test drive with the new crossover pipe. Casper's back together. The jet hot coat crossover is in. Do a quick little show and tell. It looks good, seems pretty all right. We're going to take this thing for a drive, get some footage on it, and also while we're at it, when I get back, I'll do an inspection of the coating and see how it looks after driving out here on country roads, because Casper is just as much a farm truck as it is my fun truck, and frankly, I run the wheels off this thing. So I'm gonna grab the keys and fire it up and we'll go do some testing. All right, so we are back in Casper and I'm setting up the logger real quick here. Now we can go do our first test run with the updated crossover pipe. Alright, because I want to be able to read my air temps here. Connect. Alright. Dashboards. Okay, it is currently 91 degrees outside and 94% humidity, so it is just left side of hotter than sin currently. Here in southeast Michigan, I have my jet hot coated crossover pipe on the truck. Air intake temps, the truck's been sitting in the shade since this morning. When we started this endeavor, it was 82 degrees and the same humidity. So we're going to see how this all goes. Everything's buttoned up. The goal is to hopefully see slightly lower EGTs or intake temps as we cruise out. So the truck does not have air conditioning, so if I start to melt in the truck, that's why. Intake temps are already at 100 degrees and we're putzing out of town here quick, so it's not like I'm really beating on it. EGTs are nearing 400 degrees. Get up over the railroad tracks out of town and we'll give it a little something here and see what happens. So far I've noticed that in the cab the exhaust note is different. But I think that's partially because when you add the coating to those pipes, it changes your harmonics. Intake temps are at 215, EGTs are at 950, and intake temps peaked at 244 degrees, and that was our peak at 100% throttle. Going through torque converter lockup in the 4th gear, we neared 1,000 degree EGTs. Go ahead and put the truck back down to cruise control at 60. And our cruising air intake temps are still well over 125 degrees. And our EGTs are staying around 500. Cruising boost, as you can see, is about 1 pound. The S300, it's not what you would call a boost tween like the HX35 and 40 is. Intake temps have come down to 118 degrees, and we were right around 475 degrees for the EGTs. The wind has picked up because we got a storm rolling in, so we're going to see what happens driving into the wind here and really letting it eat. And 4,000 degree EGTs and 248 degree intake temperatures. That is our current peak, which that was what we expected to see with the coated crossover, was a higher engine gas temp, but we are also seeing a more consistent boost. So that means that we're not having as much thermal loss through the wall of the pipe as we are really starting to feed at the beans. Intake air temps are considerably warmer right now because the ambient air temp is up 11 degrees now. It's 93 degrees outside, where it was 82 this morning. So obviously we are going to see a little bit of influx with that. Yep, my pyrometer still waves at you because it's got a ground that's tied into the light system. So I got to change that, but get around this corner here and we're going to just kind of roll it out, get up to 60 and set the cruise again. Easy into it. We're still seeing about 750 to 800 degrees. Air intake temps are 176, peak 183 is where it topped out when it shifted with the torque converter locked up. So put it back to about 60 with the wind hitting the side of the truck. Cruise control's on. Seeing 138 degree air intake temp currently. And we are also seeing plus or minus 525 degree engine gas temps as we're cruising into the wind right now. So like I said, the EGTs are doing exactly what I thought they were going to do with the coated pipe. We don't have anywhere near the turbo lag that we had before. EGTs peak out about 25 degrees higher than they did with an uncoated pipe, but we have more consistent boost. So far I would say that the hot jet coating is doing what it's supposed to do. It's keeping the heat where it should ought to be. The flow is good, so I'm pretty impressed by that. Air intake temps have dropped to 127 and our cruising EGT now is 475, 480. So I'm really not too upset by this change, especially to have a little bit more down low when you really get on it. You can feel the difference, and also you can see the boost gauge isn't taking quite as long to take off when I put my foot through the throttle pedal. So we'll keep it on the truck. We're gonna do quite a bit more driving with it and see how it all turns out. And when I get back to the house here, I'll go ahead and do a quick check overall and see how it looks after some road debris has found its way up under the truck and probably caught that pipe at least 1 or 2 times. So hopefully it's a pretty resistant coating, because I know that underneath this truck there are a lot of dings and dents. Much more consistent shift in the boost gauge. I like that, especially when the torque converter locks. It's not got the harsh boost peak anymore like it used to. So we'll get this thing back to the house. I'll do a quick walkthrough underneath the vehicle, and then you guys can make the decision if you too want to go the jet hot coated crossover or downpipe. I have a wrap downpipe on this truck, and quite frankly, it's one of the better choices I could make, other than the fact that it does get wet once in a while, and then I have to deal with the smell. So the downpipe, I think, maybe the next thing that I pull off and get coated. Back at GSC HQ, so now I can go ahead and get this thing parked, crawl under it, do a once over, talk about our findings, and then, like I said, you guys can make the decision if you want to go the same route that I have. We are back from the test run with the new crossover on with the jet hot coating and the KB diesel crossover. She made it around the block with a good reefing. No exhaust leaks, no problems, and so far I don't see too much road damage, and the coating really held up well. So we're gonna get some miles on this over the next few weekends as we work on the hay buying and do some other farm things, and we need to haul scrap metal and do other farm work with it. So that being said, I'm gonna say this is a success, and I would definitely recommend looking into it, especially after watching my gauges and seeing how my pyrometer responded and how the rest of the truck also responded to the coated crossover versus wrapped or versus a non-coated crossover pipe. So over the next couple of months, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see how it does with some road grime and debris as we get into fall, and we'll report back in 3-4 months. So thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of the weekend.